It's time for the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time review for the Gamecube. Ever since the movie Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time came out, I've been wanting to see it, but like with just about every, if not every movie based on a game, I want to play the game first, even if a movie is very loosely based on the game. So now that I've played this, I can finally watch the movie. About the game. The story's about how a prince travels with his father and his army to a city on a raid. During the raid, the prince finds a mysterious dagger called the Dagger of Time and keeps it. He uses it as a key to open a huge hourglass, but by doing so, he releases the Sands of Time, which turns just about everyone and all the animals into monstrous sand creatures and sand beasts. Now it's up to you, with a little help from the princess of the raided city named Farah, to undo the curse you started. This is an action-adventure game. Some of you may know I've already reviewed Prince of Persia: Rival Swords, and because of that, I had an idea of what to expect from this game, and for the most part, I was right. As you play through each level, you'll use the prince's high agility and acrobatic skills to complete puzzles and reach the next goal. You'll also fight off enemies using these same skills, as well as melee combat moves. Defeating enemies isn't a 1-2 punch situation. Once you knock an enemy down, you have to stab the enemy with the Dagger of Time to gather the Sands of Time, which are keeping them in existence. Every time you retrieve sand from an enemy, one of your sand tanks will be filled with sand. If all your sand tanks are filled while gathering more sand from enemies, a small portion of a new power tank will become larger. Once you have collected enough sand, a new power tank will become available. You can find sand clouds, which will not only fill up all your tanks at once, but when you find enough, you can increase the amount of tanks you have on hand, which in turn gives you more opportunities for sand powers. When full, sand tanks and power tanks are very useful for the prince. One full sand tank will allow the prince to reverse time up to 10 seconds, which is enough to correct a vital mistake. You can also use a sand tank to slow down time for a short period, a good strategy to use when fighting multiple enemies. Filled power tanks allow for special moves as well. If you stab an enemy in the chest with the Dagger of Time, they will turn entirely into sand for a short duration and become completely vulnerable. One stab with the dagger will use up one power tank. The other special move the power tanks can give can only be achieved once the prince has all his power tanks full. When he does, you can activate his ultimate move, which is super speed to take down enemies with ease. Be careful though, because unlike sand tanks, it takes the quantity of Sand of Time from 2 enemies to fill up one power tank, instead of 1 enemy for 1 sand tank. This gives strategy to the gameplay, because if you want to progress through the game more easily, you'll have to decide when and when not to use your powers. Although most enemies don't put up too much of a fight, they're not really pushovers, and you'll usually encounter multiple enemies in an area, which can get frustrating quite a bit. There are, however, fights when even using your powers can seem like not enough to win. Once you defeat the last enemy in an area, the game will cut to a very short in-game cinematic of him sheathing his weapons. I know this is to signify that there are no more enemies within the area, but come on! Was it really necessary to show this each and every time I defeated the enemies? Why does it have to show a cutscene each time? Why couldn't he just quickly sheath his weapons without pausing the game? It may seem like a small thing to complain about, and it wouldn't really bother me if it happened once in a while, but it happens every time you end a fight. Even when you're fighting just a few scarabs, it's just really annoying. Another time it does this is when you go to take a drink of water. Water is health in this game, and you can find pools and fountains to drink from. But every time you take a drink, the camera zooms to a close-up of him. Why is this necessary? Just take a drink! There were times when I needed to gain health back during a fight, and when this happens, my view of the battlefield is anything but helpful. Why is this game so dramatic on such normal situations? The sound design is very poor when it comes to in-game and cutscene narrations. You could barely hear what the people were saying at the default settings. You can turn down the music and sound effects, but even when I did this, twice, I still had a hard time understanding what the characters were saying. The graphics are great at the time of its release. Actually, they still look pretty good. The only complaints I have with them is that in a handful of areas when you have to climb or descend on a wall, it can be pretty difficult telling where you can actually jump down to because the shading of the areas you can grab onto can look too similar to the places you can't hold onto. Also, the depth perception in some areas was low, which in turn made it difficult in telling what you could and couldn't hang on to, as well as where you could and couldn't jump to another platform, pillar, wall, etc. This got extremely annoying fast. The controls worked just fine. It was easy to use the Prince's moveset to run across walls as well as using his combat moves and sand powers. Now this game has some serious glitches. Here's an enemy glitch. Just hanging out. Here's a crazy graphical glitch, in which I had to restart this level. Here's a glitch where Farah just randomly dies all of a sudden, forcing me to restart at the last save point. And here's my favorite one, yes, a game-breaking glitch. So right here, as I'm trying to wall jump this section, I fall down, and because I use the reverse time power, it looks like I saved myself from dying, but the game registers that I did die. So I press retry, but when it brings me back to the last save point, I can only play for about 2 to 3 seconds before the "you died, please retry or quit" selection screen comes up. No matter how many times I tried to restart from this screen, it would loop back to the death screen. I tried restarting the console and bringing the game file back up, but it was corrupted because it still wouldn't let me progress because for some reason it thought I was still dead. I lost 3 hours of gameplay because of this glitch and had to start a brand new file. The camera was okay. It was nice that I was able to almost freely move it around usually when I wanted to, but it seemed like it would fight with itself some of the time. It was overall okay, but I feel like it could have been better. The voice acting was really good, that is, when you could hear it. The script had some pretty funny humor in it as well.
Now I get through.
I don't know. Can't you crawl through a crack or something?
The puzzles throughout can range from simple to challenging. The game itself isn't really that long, but the puzzles can slow you down and can sort of make up for the lack of length of game. I was actually surprised to find out there was only one boss fight in the game. Well, I guess this part right here could be counted as another boss fight, but it felt like a regular battle. The point is, I'm not exactly disappointed with the lack of boss fights, but I think having more of them could have improved the overall game experience. The only boss fight in the game, however, was disappointingly easy. There's a few extras in the game like the making of segments, which are pretty cool to watch. Behind the scenes of anything is always fun to view. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is an enjoyable game. Great graphics, good controls, fun sand powers, challenging battles and puzzles, a good story, and great voice acting. However, the sound design needed some serious adjustments. The sheathing your weapons cutscene and zoom close-up of you drinking water became annoying fast, and actually, the water drinking close-up was unhelpful at times. Some glitches were very annoying, and that game-breaking glitch was extremely frustrating. There were a few battles where it seemed very unfair, as there were so many enemies surrounding you that even your sand powers could only help you so much. While it was nice to have a free camera, it would give me bad angles in bad situations quite a lot, and a disappointingly easy boss battle. But overall, this is still a fun and interesting game. I'm sure this franchise is where Ubisoft got their idea for Assassin's Creed. Now I can finally watch the movie Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. This game gets a 3.5 out of 5 with the title of good.